Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Boston Balling. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut. Opening day, we finally made it, people. It's baseball is back. It was a long off season with the lockout and everything, but we have all made it. We're finally here. It's time to finally talk baseball. I'm super excited. I hope everyone else is too. Happy Wednesday for everyone who's listening. And so yeah, to get into this episode, I'm really, really excited to have a special guest with me today. Very, very knowledgeable about baseball, host of the Locked On Yankees podcast, Stacey Gotsulias. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you hopping on my show. As I'm a big Red Sox fan. So you being a big Yankees fan, I thought that this was kind of the perfect time to have you on my show. Since opening weekend, the Red Sox and the Yankees play each other. So I think that's going to be really exciting. So definitely appreciate you hopping on.
My pleasure. I'm happy baseball's back finally, although delayed by a day. Thank you, Mother Nature.
Yeah. I know, unfortunately, yeah. I mean, I kind of saw it coming with the weather, but I'm happy that they canceled it when they did because now people who are planning on going out there for the game, they don't waste their time going all the way to the stadium just to have the game be postponed tomorrow when they're already there
Oh,
to then
I've had
move
that
it to
happen.
Friday,
Yeah, I've
So
yeah, I've had that happen. Oh wait, the last opening day at the old stadium, we were there for 4 hours while the rain poured, and then they decided, "Oh, we're gonna call it and schedule it for tomorrow night." We're all like, because they wanted concessions sold. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Mhm,
that would make me so mad. I'd be like, yeah, I came all the way out here and now the game's canceled.
mhm.
So from that aspect, I think it's good, but it definitely is a bummer. I remember even last year too, the Red Sox opening day game got postponed to the Friday as well. And it's
Yeah.
always nice to be able to play on opening day, but I'd rather them play when the weather is nicer.
Yeah, and Friday's supposed to be, earlier in the week, it looked like it was gonna rain Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I looked at the weather app today, and it looks like it's gonna be around 65 and sunny on Friday, so that'll be even better for opening day.
That's perfect. That's like perfect baseball weather.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm definitely happy to have you. I'm excited to kind of talk about the season and this upcoming series. Before we do that, though, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you kind of got involved with the Lockdown Podcast Network?
I wrote about baseball for a while, blogging and working on different sites. I was writing for Baseball Prospectus and the Hardball Times, FanRag Sports, RIP. Um, and Jesse Spector actually was working on Locked On Yankees in, I think it started 2017, and he had to step away and asked me if I wanted to take over. And at that point, there were 3 or 4 people on the site because it wasn't just a podcast, there was also writing on there, and I thought, "Okay, I can do the writing and the podcasting," and then within a month, it was just me, and they aimed for just podcasting, and I've been there ever since. That was June of 2018, so this is my 4th full season doing it, so almost 5, which is crazy to think about, so I completely made the switch from writing to podcasting. I haven't written anything in nearly 4 years now. I
That's
don't even know if I
awesome.
remember how to do it.
Imagine if they wanted you to write an article now, you'd be like, oh, we'll see how I go about this.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard enough time, writing my outlines and my, scripts and stuff for me and my co-host, so trying to write an article might be really scary. I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't blame you on that. But yeah, I mean, podcasting is definitely fun, and you obviously do a great job, really knowledgeable about baseball too. So they definitely, those Yankees fans are lucky to have you for
Thank
sure,
you. I appreciate
doing it.
that.
But I
I
am
hope they feel
curious.
the same way.
I am curious though, like what you even talk about during the lockout, because that's like it's like what do you come up with for content for
It
that?
was so hard. Well, when it was me and Abby together, because I have a co-host that does shows with me a few times a week, not all 5 days, but 2 to 3 times a week, and that helps a lot because when you have someone to bounce ideas off of, it's much easier to come up with stuff. But I was doing things like, Walk Off Wednesday, talking about random games from seasons and, Throwback Thursday and Flashback Friday, because that just made it easier for me to come up with things to talk about. And I like doing that because it's really fun to look at old box scores and, especially when you're reading off the lineups. And I did a game today from, was it 2002? And there were a couple of names that I completely I forgot these people even existed. And when I saw the names, I immediately pictured their faces. And I want that to happen for the people who watch and listen to me, to be the same way. But, oh my God, I forgot that guy existed. So that was easy for me to do because that's one of my favorite things to do. But, that was a topic of discussion among the hosts because we're like, what are we going to do if this lasts until June? And I think they had come up with a content calendar because they did that with the COVID season. So we had specific things we needed to do on specific days because instead of 5 days a week, they had us doing it 3. And that really helped us then. But the lockout we were just bitching about the lockout most of the time when it was me and Abby. And when everything ended, we were both like, oh my God, aren't you guys so excited? We're not bitching about the lockout anymore,
Yeah, right. Because it's like, what else was there to talk about, really? Like,
Yeah.
there was just no baseball. Nothing was happening. So,
right.
How do you come up with content? But yeah, definitely a slow and sad time for all of us baseball fans. But then when they finally ended the lockout and things started happening again with like all these big name free agents still on the board before the lockout, and it's like now finally these big names can get signed places and people can finally know where these people are ending up.
Yeah. And it was funny too because everyone was predicting, like they were joking, the lockout's going to end and an hour later all these guys are going to start signing places, but that wasn't going to happen because with the lockout they weren't supposed to be talking to people, so it wasn't going to be like a really quick thing to happen. So I know people were disappointed because it took a few days for things to start happening, but once it did, it was once the ball started rolling, nice pun, it sped up a bit. And then with the shortened spring training, like, I can't believe we're here. We're 2 days away from opening day. It felt so long. The lockout felt so long. And then all of a sudden it's like, we're here. It's about to start. It's finally here. Can't believe it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like it feels almost weird kind of because I wasn't sure if we were even going to see this day. So,
not now. And it was funny too. On our show, I think it was the day before they announced that everything was coming back. I boldly was like, I don't think things are going to start until like June. And then the next day, and I'm like,
the next day, sure enough.
Don't listen to me. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So
yeah, the next day, sure enough, like end the lockout. Now we all can have baseball back. And I mean, it still is. I'm still surprised, honestly, that it's only starting a week later than it was supposed to.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I really thought, I was with you. I was like, I think at least the first month of the season is going to get canceled.
It really
thought that.
Yeah. Thank
so
God.
That's why I'm impressed that they managed to pull this all off and only start a week late, and they'll still be making up those games, so they'll be able to play a full 162, which will be good.
Right, because of the whole, if this happens, we're going to cancel games. We're not going to make them up, and yeah, I'm actually happy about that too. And I don't mind double headers. It's not like it's going to be a ton of them, and I kind of miss the days of scheduled double headers. The first games I ever went to, it was a scheduled doubleheader. It wasn't made up for rain or anything like that. I went to Yankee Stadium in August of 1983 and saw the Yankees sweep the Blue Jays. And between games, we were sitting in left field at Old Yankee Stadium. And back then the wall went all the way back. And between games, my dad was talking to Dave Winfield because he played left field in the second game. And I'm sitting there looking at my dad talking to Dave Winfield and thinking, is he really talking to Dave Winfield? Like, it's no big deal. What is happening right now? They were acting like they were old friends. And I thought it was the best experience ever. And I really, I liked baseball, watching it with my dad, but being there, like my first experience was just so great that I fell in love with it that day. So
that's so cool. That's such a cool story though, to like tell people like, oh yeah, this is when I fell in love with baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember what I was wearing. I remember who I was with because the boy I liked in elementary school was with us. So yeah, it was.
Oh yeah, yep.
It was a banner day in the life of Stacey Gotsulias all those years ago, almost 40. So yeah.
That's so funny. That's such a good story. I like that.
Yeah. It was a good day.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of baseball, here we are. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of appropriate and perfect, I feel like, for the Red Sox and Yankees to be starting the season against each other because last year we had to wait so long. They didn't start playing each other until June last year. So I feel like having that first series be Red Sox Yankees, I feel like is kind of a dream for both fan bases.
Well, I'm just glad they didn't have to start in Texas and Houston. So I was happy about that. At least they're opening at home now with the first week wiped out. So that was good.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. And I mean, even with the Red Sox, like they're used to Yankee Stadium too. So it's not like they're going super far to go there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a fun series for sure. But based on kind of, how spring training went and everything, like, how are you feeling about the Yankees going into the season right now?
Everyone's healthy, knock on wood, which is the only thing I was really worried about. I mean, I didn't care if they gave up 14 runs in, a game. It didn't matter. As long as everyone made it off the field with all their limbs intact, I was happy with the results. And so far, again, knocking on wood, um, everything seems to be fine. It'll be interesting just to see how different the infield is going to be. Seeing how Boone sets the lineup for opening day. Is he going to go with Isaiah Kiner Falefa for defense and not worry about the bat in the lineup? Because, you're adding Josh Donaldson at third. And if he stays healthy and can hit 25 home runs, and if other guys recover, I know a lot of people were mad about the offseason. I kind of was too. I wanted them to sign Correa, but I get why they didn't. That's still a scary lineup. Even if most of those guys are only at 75% of what they can hit. I mean, when you look at it 1 through 9, it's still a scary lineup. Like, Yankee fans were completely overreacting to some things. And, any other year, if you looked at that, it's not 2013 to 2014 when they had like Brennan Bosch and, Brendan Kelly, and they signed like Brian Roberts and Kevin Youkilis and who else? There were all these guys that you're just like, who the hell are these people? Like they all, their primes were like 10 years ago. What are you doing? So yeah, it's just funny how, I feel like I said this on a crossover with Locked On Rays, Locked On Red Sox, Locked On Orioles. We don't have a Blue Jays host right now. All of us agreed, Rays and Red Sox and Orioles all agreed that it's going to be a dogfight, really. Like there's going to be 4 teams fighting each other all season, and the poor Orioles are just going to be down at the bottom, like staring up at the rest of the standings. But Fangraphs came out with something a couple of hours ago, and they're predicting that the Rays, the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Jays are all going to tie each other at 88 and 74. Like that's what the projection was. And I'm like, no, I can't. Not without Xanax. I can't handle that kind of a. No.
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously the division was very, very strong last year, and
it's going to be even. Yeah, it's going to be.
I think it's going to be even better this year because Toronto improved. The Rays, I don't really think they improved really per se, but they're still going to be
Rays.
There. Yeah, they're the Rays still. Like they'll find a way, and then the Red Sox and Yankees, I think, are both better teams than they were last year too. Yeah. So I think it's going to be even tougher. And I mean. People are not, talking about Toronto enough still, I don't think. I think there's too many people still sleeping on the Blue Jays. That lineup, when fully healthy, can be terrifying. Like, if I'm an opposing pitcher, I'm not going to want to go against that lineup.
No, definitely not. We also, did we come to a complete agreement on that? No, the Locked On Rays guy predicted the Rays were going to win the division, but the rest of us, even the Red Sox host, predicted the Jays.
Yeah.
We're like, it's not going to be like, they're not going to pull away a lot. It's going to be really close, but we were all predicting that the Blue Jays would finish ahead of everyone. So we'll see what happens. I mean, you never know, but it's going to be really close and really, the AL East is the best division in baseball, and it's going to continue to be that way this year.
Yeah, and it's not really close either. I mean, like, obviously, like, last year, the NL West was fun to watch, but it was really only because of, like, the top 2 teams.
Yeah.
This division here was, like, 4 teams last year because, I mean, the Blue Jays missed the playoffs by 1 game last year. And, like, I mean, and I was happy that they did because that was not a team that I wanted to see at all. Based on how they were playing at the end of the season last year, that would not have been a team I wanted to see in the playoffs.
No, and the only reason they didn't make it was that one game that the Yankees beat Robbie Ray. Like they just teed off on him, and everyone was like, what the hell's happening here? So yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it was really close.
I think I agree with you. I think Toronto does win the division, but I think it's going to be really close. And I think the other 3 teams, Red Sox, Yankees, and Rays, any of those teams as of right now can take second. I think it's obviously there's a lot that goes into that, injuries and all these other factors. But I think as of right now, like any of those teams can take second. I mean, my concern for the Red Sox, like this weekend, not just this weekend, but just the season in general, is definitely the pitching with them because the rotation is still questionable right now because obviously Chris Sale isn't going to be playing for a while. Like he's on the 60-day injured list now. James Paxton isn't going to be healthy till at least July. And so they're
never going to be healthy.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And so they're kind of
No
still
offense.
playing around with their rotation. But I know.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing too. When they
Yeah.
signed him, I was like, this guy, if he's healthy, can be a valuable part of the rotation, but he's so injury prone is the
Yeah,
problem.
we
You
saw
know?
it. We saw it 2019, right? He pitched that
Yeah.
really great game against Houston in the ALCS. It was his best performance as a Yankee, and then the injury happens and he doesn't come back, and it was just a bummer. He seems like a really cool guy, and yeah, when he's healthy, he's really good, but when is he healthy? I mean, he just can't put it together, which is sad.
Yeah, and that's the whole problem with him too, is it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know how much we can really trust him to be a valuable part of the rotation. So they're still kind of playing around with their rotation. I mean, of all these pitching game one, which obviously I trust him. He had a fantastic season last year. He does pitch well against the Yankees. So from that standpoint, I'm feeling pretty good about that. But in terms of the series, it's going to be kind of fun to just see how this goes down this weekend, because obviously it's the first series of the season. Like, people are like, yeah, don't weigh too much into what happens there, which sure, that's fine. But it's just going to be good to get that fresh taste of these two teams now after the offseason moves that they made, and just kind of see how this first this first meeting of the season goes.
Right. Yeah. Right now, the Yankees rotation is not set. It's just Cole. They don't have anyone listed for Saturday and Sunday.
He's pitching every game.
I'm assuming it's going to be a combo of Severino and Montgomery. I just don't know what the order, but I'm assuming it's going to be Severino Saturday, Montgomery Sunday, if everyone's healthy. And that's another. When you look at the Yankees rotation, it looks pretty good because you have Garrett Cole, Luis Severino, um, Jordan Montgomery. He had a really good year last year. He had that 1 month and a half where they could not score for him. His numbers would have been so much better if they actually
Yeah,
scored. He had 6 starts where they didn't score for him. It was ridiculous.
like Jacob
Jamison
DeGrom
Tyone,
2.0.
yeah. And Nestor Cortez, it's a pretty good rotation. Do they need more pitching? Yes. You can never have enough pitching. Domingo Herman's on the 60-day IL with a shoulder, I almost said shoulder impingement. But right now, the rotation looks fine. Their bullpen is, like it always is. The bullpen really helped last season, and so did the rotation. It wasn't the pitching that really cursed the Yankees last year. As I said, there were those games where they did not score for Jordan Montgomery and didn't score when they should have because of the way the lineup was. So again, if some of those guys recover, I think DJ LeMahieu was playing with an injury that he didn't tell anyone about because he just looked weird, and he looks a lot better now during spring training. Hitting the ball to the opposite field again and doing stuff like that. Gleyber Torres looks much better. Joey Gallo was joking that he has daddy power now because he just became a father. We'll see if that's true. But even if just LeMahieu and Gleyber Torres, even if they improve by maybe 80% of what they were last season, that's a big difference in that lineup. So we'll see how it goes this
Yeah,
weekend.
Gleyber Torres obviously last year had what kind of seemed like a disappointing season to a lot of Yankees fans, which, because obviously, was definitely just an off year for him. And so I think obviously that was kind of detrimental to the lineup last year.
Oh,
But
yeah.
if you guys have him obviously healthy for one, and can have a much better season than last year, that in itself I think is going to make a difference.
And if they play him at second and not short because they took until mid-September to realize, hey, he plays better at second. And look, he hits better when he plays at second because he's not thinking about his defense. Hello.
Sounds like a good idea, right?
Hey, I can't believe it took
Yeah.
them that long. I really
No, I
don't.
mean, yeah, no, I mean, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, I could say similar things about like kind of the Red Sox structure too. But I mean, what I will say from like a Red Sox perspective is like, I think their infield defense has improved this year. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on for sure, because they would make a lot of defensive errors last year in that infield, and that was becoming a really big problem kind of
Mhm.
down the stretch, and they were giving up a lot of runs because of just dumb errors by Bobby Dahlbeck and Rafael Devers, and the Story addition is definitely huge from a defensive standpoint. Obviously, also his offense, but from a defensive standpoint, I think that's going to make a difference for them. And so I think in that aspect, they improved. And then obviously, it's a good bat to add to the lineup after they lost Hunter Renfroe and they lost Schwarber. And so bringing in Story, I think, is going to really help, obviously, in multiple aspects. But I'm looking at that defense and saying this infield defense is going to be a lot better this year.
Yeah, same with the Yankees. They had to. You know, they improved behind the plate by trading Gary Sanchez, and shortstop's definitely better. Falefa is great at shortstop. We don't need him to hit 30 home runs as long as he's making plays. That's what they want. And Josh Donaldson, as old as he is, he's not that old. He's baseball old. He's not real life old. He's still pretty good at third base. And again, as long as he stays healthy, because he's another guy with that issue. Yeah, that improves the infield a lot. And Rizzo at first, Voit was kind of like, I always joked about Voit being the right-handed Jason Giambi because they were built the same. Their swings were similar and they both looked like statues at first base. And it was really kind of uncanny. Sometimes you'd see Luke Voit and it just looked like they photoshopped Jason Giambi backwards at the plate. It was really kind of weird, but
That's strange, yeah.
Yeah, first base is definitely better there. Then you have DJ LeMahieu who could back up third base, shortstop. No, well, he can play shortstop, but second base, first base. I mean, DJ LeMahieu as a bench player is kind of funny, but that's really what they signed him for in 2019. They just didn't expect him to be like the MVP. So that's what happened with him. And, then they also, Marwin Gonzalez made the roster, and he's not like the best player, but he plays a number of positions and he plays them okay. So they have good backups to help out in the infield as well. So yeah, they really needed to shore up the defense because, like you said, with the Red Sox making all these stupid errors, the Yankees were doing the same thing, and they needed to prevent run scoring because, again, sometimes if the lineup can't score but your pitchers are pitching well, you don't want your infield to screw up. So that's why they made some of the moves that they made.
Yeah, and I mean, I know some Yankees fans were disappointed that they brought back Rizzo because they wanted Freddie Freeman or Matt Olson, and that didn't happen. So they re-signed Rizzo, but Rizzo really is not a bad choice at first base.
No. And, the whole left-handed bat thing, it's good to have him and Gallo in the lineup. I mean, I wanted Matt Olson just for personal reasons because he's pretty to look at, which is nice when you're watching baseball. But
of course, I completely agree.
Oh, yeah. The Locked On A's host and I did a crossover and we were gushing about Matt Olson. He's like, I'm not afraid to say that Matt Olson is good looking.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very attractive guy. Yeah, people can admit that. It's okay.
And by the way, it is perfectly okay for women to like baseball and to find the guys attractive at the same time. It actually makes us better fans because we have more fun watching baseball in that way.
Yeah, I hate when people on Twitter are like, oh no, like they're just commenting on this person's looks, like that's why they like it. And I'm like, no, like I just think the guy's attractive, but like that doesn't mean I don't enjoy watching baseball on top of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't mean we don't know our stuff. Thank you.
Exactly. Like there are just attractive human beings that play baseball. That's not our fault.
Yeah, we have eyes. We notice this stuff,
Yeah, we're not blind to like attractive human beings that are on a baseball field. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, I think overall though, both teams improved. So I think this year, not only this weekend, but just that rivalry in general and just the matchups between these two teams, I think I could see it being kind of pretty evenly split the season series this year between the Red Sox and Yankees. I think obviously, last year they played in the wild card game and, we obviously know what happened there. And it was,
Garrett Cole was pitching on a bum hamstring that he didn't want to tell anyone about.
Yeah, exactly. And Evaldi obviously looked good in that game. So, that was fun. I think this year it's very, very possible that those two teams are neck and neck when it comes to the division, because I can't really pinpoint really anything that makes one team that much better than the other. Like when I look at the Red Sox and Yankees right now, I'm not like, oh, the Yankees are vastly better because of this, or the Red Sox are vastly better because of this. I think both of their lineups are very strong. I think the pitching is going to be questionable for both teams. I think for the Yankees, it's definitely obviously injury based, like, and just kind of making sure everybody stays healthy. And for the Red Sox, like, same thing. I mean, there already are injuries, like, and it's going to be a matter of who are they going to put into the rotation that's going to be able to step up and really like fill the shoes of the people who are injured and kind of be able to be a reliable part of the rotation. And then obviously with the bullpen, which was a shaky thing for the Red Sox last year too, that's questionable as well. But I'm looking at the two teams right now, and like I actually do think, like, in terms of how talented the teams are, I think that they're pretty even from that standpoint. That's why I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think the only thing we have to worry about is our unvaccinated players not being able to go into Canada because that'll give the Blue Jays a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, I know. No, yeah, seriously, that's gonna be bothersome for me too. But I think when it comes to Toronto, like
I
they're,
mean,
I
they
mean,
already have an advantage. Why are you giving them a bigger advantage?
exactly right. Like, I mean, their pitching is good. They could definitely use another like starter, but
Sure.
I think overall, that's the type of team where if they stay healthy, they're going to be tough. I mean, like other teams are not going to want to see the Blue Jays. I think when it comes to the Rays, like, I mean, they might finish fourth of those four teams. Like, maybe. I mean, it's hard to
Wouldn't
say,
that be something
obviously,
finally?
but yeah, seriously, there's always like the Rays and then everybody else. But it's like, I still think there's a possibility that all four of those teams can make the playoffs, especially with the expanded playoffs now.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's likely that you see four AL East teams in playoff spots.
Yeah, they'll definitely be the only division where that happens. I think that's going to happen. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy though? Like to think
Yeah.
about like pretty much everybody in your division except one team being a playoff caliber team. Like that's why it was so
Orioles.
impressive how many wins each of these teams had last year. Because if you really
Right.
think about it, with how often they had to play each other, the fact that like they were winning like 90 games is pretty impressive considering like how good all four of them were last year.
Yeah, well,
You know?
hopefully the Yankees will have solved the Orioles, who they were only 11-8 against last
Oh,
season.
yeah, that's
So,
right.
that didn't help either. It's like, hello, you're supposed to be beating up on the Orioles, and Gleyber Torres not hitting didn't help because he likes to hit against the Orioles. So we'll see what happens in this season.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about that, but the Yankees always struggle against Baltimore for some reason. They like can't win games against that team.
Yeah, except what was it 2019 when they were 17-2 against them one of the seasons.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was 2019. And that was the year that Gleyber Torres sucked the soul out of Gary Thorne's body about
Yeah.
halfway through the season. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true though. That is a really good point. Like they had a bad record against the Orioles last year, which just did not help like
No.
them at all. And I mean, but that's what the whole thing though. It's like they went 11-8 against the Orioles, but they played pretty well against the rest of the division.
Yeah, and it's
And
like,
so
how does that even happen?
yeah, right. It's like the worst team in the division you can't win games against, but then the really good teams in the division you can win games.
Yeah, it's just that, but that's how baseball is. I can't remember what year it was. My brother was telling me the Yankees in the 80s when they were good, but they weren't good enough to make the playoffs because there wasn't a wild card. Like there were a couple seasons in there where the Yankees could have made the playoffs if there was a wild card. And they were really good against the good teams. And there was one bad team that they were just awful against. And it totally screwed with them that year. I can't remember if it was maybe the Tigers at some point, but yeah, like their record was awful. And my brother couldn't understand it. He was looking at Baseball Reference. He's like, how did they not beat these guys? They were terrible. I'm like, that's just how it is sometimes. Like good teams just have teams that no matter how bad they are, they just can't solve them for some reason. But that's the great thing about baseball. You never really know what's going to happen.
Well, yeah, and that's so true. And that's why it's like with baseball, when you play these teams so many times per year, especially the teams in your division, it's like, yeah, maybe there is a team that for some reason just like hit their lineup hits well against the pitchers from that team or something like that. And they just have it just seems like the Orioles just kind of had a feel for the Yankees and could just like find ways to beat them. But then everybody else in the division would beat up on the Orioles,
Yeah.
which is what everybody's supposed to do.
Right.
We're Baltimore, but I mean,
yeah. But I mean, the Orioles do have some good hitters on their team. Cedric Mullins is a great player. I kind of feel bad that, him and Mountcastle and there's another guy, but there are a few good hitters on that team. And I know that they're only maybe like a couple of years away from getting better because they have people in the farm system. They have draft picks because they're horrible. So it would be nice to have Baltimore could you imagine in 2 years, all 5 AL East teams? Because, the other ones aren't really going to drop off. So you could see something in, like 2025, maybe all 24, 25. You see all 5 AL East teams, in a dogfight. That would be.
I know. I feel like that'd be fun, like if the Orioles were like involved in that. But I think you're right. I think when it comes to the Orioles, like, yeah, I mean their pitching is still not good, and like, but they do have a few decent hitters in that lineup, and I feel like they have some good prospects in their system too that could come up. And so I think if you give them like a few years, like 2 or 3 years, like you said, I think they actually could be in the mix, which
Yeah.
is just crazy to think about because everybody's like, oh yeah, haha, like the Orioles, but I don't think they're going to be like a laughing matter in a couple of years anymore. Like I
Yeah,
think
they're
they
not
actually
they're not the
can.
Pirates. They'll improve.
Yeah, the Pirates. Like I generally feel bad for anybody who's a Pirates fan because I'm like, what is their team doing?
Our poor Locked On Pirates host, he's just every time something happens, I feel so bad for him. Not as bad as I felt for the Locked On Rockies host during our trade deadline live show. He was just like, "They're not doing anything? Are they really not doing
The
anything?"
Rockies are so confusing.
Especially when the Dodgers did what they did at the trade deadline, and it was fun watching it live on YouTube and watching their facial expressions. It was pretty funny.
No, that is funny. Yeah. I mean, some of these other divisions are going to be really fun to watch this year, too. I mean, I'm definitely intrigued by the NL East this
Sure.
year. I think that's going to be a fun division to watch. Obviously, like the Braves are still going to be there. I mean, the Mets like have the potential to be good this year, but they always, for some reason, find a way to like mess that up. So that's going to be interesting. And then, the Phillies obviously are there. I think that division is going to be interesting to watch. I think the Marlins are a team that's not being talked about enough right now either. I think they're going to be like better than people think this year
They
too.
have really good pitching.
I
They
know.
just need to
Nobody
get
talks
a
about it
little
though.
better hitting, and they can really be a pain in the butt for the NL East. Or, make the NL East as exciting as the AL East, maybe in like a year or two. That would be fun.
Yeah, no, that would be, and then nobody talks about them though. But like they sneakily have like really really good pitching on that
Mhm.
team and players who are going to be there for a while, probably.
Right.
And so I think that they secretly are kind of making their way in that division to kind of make their mark there, I think. And like I'm kind of looking out for them this year too. And then obviously the Dodgers, I mean, are the Dodgers. They just get everybody whenever they feel like it.
I know.
Like
Everyone always talks about the Yankees getting whoever they want. No, it's the Dodgers now, okay?
yeah, it used to be, but like
Yeah.
no, it is more the Dodgers. I mean, but
Mhm.
do you think that anybody else like has a chance against the Dodgers, or do you think that they are probably going to win the World Series?
No, I think that I feel like no matter how good a team is, unless they're really, really good, but even that's not a guarantee. I mean, Seattle won 116 games in 2001. The Yankees still beat them in the ALCS. The Yankees nearly got eliminated by Cleveland when they won 114. So you
Yeah,
never know.
yeah, you really
I mean, it
don't.
looks like they would be the safest ones to predict winning the World Series. But I mean, honestly, once the playoffs start, you could have anything happen. Everyone was not predicting the Nationals to do it 3 years ago, and
Nobody, not a single person, I don't think.
no,
Yeah. And
no,
that's the whole thing, though. That was such a cool story, like
that was
watching
so
them
great.
go like all the way to the World Series. Nobody saw that coming, and that's what I love about playoff baseball because like whatever team is clicking at that right time, like could be
That's
the
what it
team that
is.
win. Like you could be the team on paper that's supposed to win, like, and everybody thinks has a really good chance of winning, but then in the playoffs you might go into a really bad slump.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that's why you can't really like predict that. And I think obviously, the Dodgers are likely going to win their division and will be, obviously a playoff like team, probably a team that a lot of people are going to pick.
Oh, yeah.
But it's I mean, and they have an unbelievable lineup. I mean, pretty much everybody in their lineup is like an all-star. So that's kind of not fair to everybody else. But I mean, you
Yeah.
just really, really never know. And obviously with injuries, it's so hard to predict something like that. I mean, I don't know that San Francisco will be able to do what they did last year.
Yeah, that
Um,
was kind of fluky in a way. At one point I thought, "All right, they're gonna fall off at some point," and they just never did.
Yeah, right? I was like, they just kept winning, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought so too. I thought maybe, like, after the All-Star break or something, like, they would start to kinda, go downhill and kind of fall back to normal, but they just never did. They just kept winning, and I was like, "This seems kinda like a fluke to me." I still think they could keep that division interesting, but I
Yeah.
think ultimately, at the end of the day, like, the Dodgers are still the best team in that division.
Oh, yeah.
Um, So that's going to be fun to watch this year too. But I don't think anybody's going to find any division as fascinating as the AL East because
No.
there's just not like the fact that there's 4 teams in that division that all could be like 90, potentially like 90-win teams is unbelievable to me. And
Yep.
like obviously with Tampa Bay, nobody understands ever really what they do or why they do it. But they just lost another big bat too, though. Like that's kind of a key bat in their lineup that they lost now. So that's why I don't really get what
Yankee
they're.
fans were rejoicing
I
for
know.
that trade, and Randall Grichuk is finally out of Toronto.
Toronto,
Thank
yeah.
goodness. So yeah, he had 17 home runs and like 64 at bats against the Yankees. What?
Yeah, that's
So
unreal. Yeah,
bye. Nice to see you.
the Yankee killer is gone. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. So that's why it definitely will be a little bit interesting from that standpoint. But the Rays just always call up random people who just end up being like some stud. You know what I mean? And like
It's like
that's
they have
just
a
how it works
lab.
for them.
Yeah, they have a lab where they grow these people. I don't understand where they come from, honestly. And it's so weird the turnaround the Rays made because we were so used to them being at the bottom and being the team that you beat up on. And now it's like, where did they come from? And they're doing this without spending money, which is kind of annoying because it makes the other owners think, oh, we'll be able to do the same thing. You're not. Spend money. Don't do what the Rays do.
like go out and spend money and get like
Yeah.
big caliber players like
Yeah.
who can help you win stuff. And I mean with the Rays, like when they went to the World Series, I mean that was quite a story in itself. I mean
Yeah.
like and they I mean we all know like kind of how that went down there in game 6 of that World Series, but I am so curious to know what would have happened if that series went 7 games.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they had a shot. They definitely had a shot. I
Thank you,
mean,
Kevin Cash, for being like Aaron Boone in game 6.
Kevin
What was he
Cash. Oh my
doing?
gosh. Yeah. I mean, he's the one that blew it because it's like in that situation there, it made zero sense to pull Blake Snell from that game. Like he was
Yeah.
pitching really, really well. Like the Dodgers lineup really didn't have any answers for the guy. I mean, it was just a mistake to pull him. And then obviously, unfortunately, that's how it ended. But you have to wonder how that would have gone down had that
Yeah.
gone 7 games.
Mm-hmm. It would have been
But yeah, that's
interesting.
the thing about Tampa Bay. Like they're just there, like they're sneakily like in there every year, and like nobody knows, like because their lineup is just like, well, like what the heck,
Like, who are
why,
these guys?
yeah, like why are these guys so good? But then I mean, and then we all have to play at their stadium like every year, like we all, I mean us, but the team.
I can't
And
stand that
so
place. No
I can't
offense.
stand that place either. It's
But
probably one of the worst baseball stadiums. Actually, I feel kind of bad though because it's like I feel like the Rays being a good team, they deserve a better stadium than that.
well, all right, let's briefly just talk about this for a second. The whole them wanting to announce that they were going to do a split season this season, which didn't happen, but the fact that they wanted to announce that on a banner during the playoffs in there, like, why would you do that?
That made no sense to me. I was like, this does not seem like a good idea at all. Like
Like,
whoever came
hey,
up with this.
we're gonna play half our games in Canada because you guys don't come to the games here, so we might as well split the season. Like,
And it's like,
what?
yeah, you think like you're gonna have like more people going to the games in Canada and like or people making the trek like half the season. It just doesn't that so like logistically just doesn't make sense.
No, it's a nightmare. And it's just, I mean, it's not happening, but it was so funny the way they went about it. I'm like, what are you thinking?
I know, right? I'm like, oh, the Rays, like the Rays are gonna be the Rays, like I guess, but yeah, no. Who do you think wins the series this weekend?
I would say the Red Sox because the Yankees never do well against the Red Sox in April. I don't know why. They just never have. Even when they were good, like, when they were perennial division winners, they always have trouble against the Red Sox before the All-Star break, and then they kind of kick it into gear. So I'm not worried.
What happened last year?
Yeah.
Last year, like the Red Sox won all those games like before the All-Star break, and then after the All-Star break, the Yankees won all of them.
Yeah. So
It was so weird.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's going to be a sweep. It'll
I
be like
don't either.
2 out of 3.
No,
But
I don't either. I think whoever wins the series will take 2 of 3. Like I definitely don't think like either team is going to start off 3-0.
Right.
Obviously, like the pitching, like we.
I mean,
talked
they
about
could, but I don't see it happening either.
And it's going to be interesting to see like how Garrett Cole pitches.
He should be fine as long as he's healthy. It's the health thing. He was throwing the ball hard. He was only really throwing fastballs though. The one game I saw him doing it because it was his first outing. But he looked fine. I don't care about
People overreact to spring training sometimes, I feel like, because people were overreacting when he had that bad start in spring training, like on Twitter, and it's like, oh my gosh, like what's wrong with Garrett Cole? And it's like,
it's like he
okay,
didn't limp off the pitcher's mound. That's all I care about.
yeah, right. And it's like that's why I don't freak out about a bad start during spring training. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
they're
like
working their stuff out. They're
yeah, right?
trying,
It's like this is what spring training is for. Like they're getting back into it. Like they've had their time off. Like they've had a few months off or whatever. Like they had extra time off now because of like not being able to report to spring training on time. And
yeah,
so it's like they're all gonna have like these little like mini struggles that they're gonna have to work out, like those kinks before the season starts. And that's kind of what spring training is there for. So all the people who are like, oh my gosh, like I don't know about this person, it's just like, well, it's been one they've had one outing like in spring training, like this is their first time pitching back after being off for a few months. Like let's like pump the brakes on that for a little bit, you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like if
I
we
feel
go into
like
the season and it's like they're still doing this, then we should be concerned. But
right, but I also feel like it's going to take some guys all across baseball to kind of get into things because spring training was abbreviated. So you're going to see, I feel like you're going to see some ugly baseball the first couple of weeks, and you'll see some guys do things that you don't expect them to do. And then they'll get into a groove and things will be better, just because spring training was abbreviated the way it was.
and yeah, exactly. That's a good point too. And that's why another thing why I feel like the beginning of the season might be a little bit different, because like some of the guys still might be trying to work out some of that stuff that normally would be passed in spring
Right.
training. But since they didn't get as much of that this year, like the first couple of weeks of the season might be rough for some players because they might be like, oh yeah, like now we're all of a sudden back to live games, like real games, but like we didn't have as much spring training as we would have wanted, you know? So that's why like that's a really good point too. That's why like these first few series might be like a little bit frustrating in certain aspects. It's like some
Right.
pitchers might not pitch that well because they're rusty or like they're still
Some
trying to
hitters are
work
going to
some
look
things
bad.
out. Like people might not look as good at the plate. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of factors I feel like, but it's going to be like either way, I think regardless of like how everything turns out, I think people are just happy to have baseball back. I think Red Sox and Yankees fans both are just like super excited to be able to watch the teams play, you know, and have it be like real games that actually count, you know,
Yeah.
now. It's like I don't know why, but it probably is because of the lockout, but I feel like this off season was way too like it just felt like forever.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's been forever since the World Series.
Yeah.
Like I just really feel like that was so long ago. And it's probably because during the lockout, there was no
Oh,
baseball
yeah. The
discussion.
Braves won, right? Okay. For a
Yeah,
second, I'm like, wait, who won the World Series? I don't even remember.
come to think of it.
Like,
Yeah,
wait a
but
minute.
it was that's why it feels like it was so long ago. So I think just having baseball back in general is going to be good. I'm excited. I'm interested in seeing like the pitching matchups this weekend. I think that's going to be very telling, and as opposed to like who is going to be like, you know, reliable in the rotation, because I think obviously with the Red Sox they're still trying to figure that out. So whoever pitches this weekend, if they pitch well, I think that'll be kind of a sign of who might be kind of those top guys in their rotation. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see kind of you know, how Trevor Story meshes during regular season games. And like, you know, we have Jackie Bradley Jr. back, who
Oh, that's right.
obviously a lot of mixed feelings on that. But I think in terms of like him being a veteran and who's so familiar with Boston and playing with Alex Cora, like I think could actually be beneficial for the team from like a locker room standpoint.
Sure.
So I think that's actually a good thing for them. Obviously, his offense isn't the best, but like he's obviously, I mean, his defense is really kind of the primary reason why he's here, I think, because you know he's one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball. So I think from that standpoint, that's going to help them as well. But I know people were like, "Ugh, we're stuck back with JBJ." But you know, I like the guy. I think he and he likes playing in Boston too. So I think that'll be a good thing. So there's a lot of things to be excited for this year, but I think it'll be a fun series. It's so appropriate that the Red Sox and Yankees are playing each other to start the season. Like I love that. I feel like it creates a lot more excitement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To go with the season starting.
Right. Instead of playing like, I wouldn't have been happy with the way the season started, even though they were playing the Astros in the first two series. I'm like,
Yes,
whatever.
yeah, like it's not as exciting, I feel like, as
No.
like playing the Red Sox. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so yeah, but I'm really looking forward to it. I'm sure you are too. I appreciate you hopping on with me, though.
Of course.
Um,
Anytime. Anytime you want to talk during the season, any other series or, anything you want to talk about baseball wise, I am here.
Okay, I really appreciate it. I definitely will have you back on. Just like let everybody know where they can find you, find your show before we hop off.
You can find Locked On Yankees on every podcasting platform available, and there are new ones popping up all the time that I never knew existed. We're also on YouTube. We do it, we do a video podcast now, and we just hit 1,000 subscribers today, so I'm very excited
Oh,
about that.
congratulations.
Yeah, and Locked On Yankees is on Instagram and Twitter. Locked On Yankees, all one word. And then you can find me at my personal Twitter if you want to see me tweet about baseball, 80s music, and Degrassi. Stace Gotts, Stacegots.
That's quite a combination there. But yeah, you heard it from her, guys. Everyone definitely check that out. She does really good baseball content, talks to the Locked On Red Sox crew as well. So definitely a good one to follow.
Yes, subscribe to them as well.
Yeah, no, definitely subscribe to them too. They are also very good. But I appreciate you hopping on. Definitely would love to have you on again as well, but we can definitely discuss that. But thank you everybody for tuning in as always. Really appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great rest of the week. Everybody enjoy opening day. Enjoy the first weekend of baseball season being here. And of course, as always, I have to end with Go Red Sox.